Millennials, yeah, we back at it again. Versus the world, you know that we gon' win. Right by my side, got my family and kin. Go, K-Dot. MW, man, this podcast is tough. K-Dot like Giannis, he keep it above. Millennials up and we ain't getting stuck. No, they ain't ready, you think we gon' stop? Maryland and D.C, we got it on lock. Tune in, we live, and you know we the spot. Panels and parties, you know how we rock. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world.
Millennials versus the world.
Hey man, what up, man? Welcome back to another episode of Millennials versus the world. Man, it's your boy K-Dot Mims, the only spot you get authenticity and entertainment at the same time. So by now, you've already seen the Wellness Project. You've seen the promos. Y'all know we've been dropping. This is going to be a super dope episode. We got a super dope soul on us. First, let me shout out cameraman Todd back there. Todd, what up, what up, what up?
I can hear you, but you can't see me.
All right, the camera guy, man. So today we have somebody that has a super dope story, killing it in the wellness field, really killing it as an adult, a millennial, you know what I'm saying? So Destinee, thank you so much for coming on and rapping with us today.
Keenan, thanks for having me.
For sure. So before we get into, where you at career-wise, where you at in the wellness field, kind of take us back to where, like, you know, your upbringing, how it was, where you're from, what it was like for you coming up and all those things.
Mm-hmm. So, well, let me just say thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and see you two again.
No doubt.
I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, actually.
Oh, yeah, Carolina, North Carolina.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually grew up in a little town outside of Fayetteville called Rayford, and I moved to Raleigh for high school and then college in Greensboro. And I had a very interesting upbringing. I have 4 brothers and very traumatic / neglectful childhood, and that has definitely shaped who I am as an adult with building intentional connections, but also had a lot of joy in terms of community and the village and extended family. So a lot to be thankful for there in terms of resilience factors. And yeah, I mean, other than it's the very southern upbringing that I had has twisted me into a different being. Now I almost have little snippets of those southern values that I still hold on to, and also some that I have completely just abandoned in terms of southern tradition. Yeah.
So let me ask this though. When you say very I won't say neglect, but traumatic, because I feel like the word trauma has been a big thing now that we understand what it is. When you were younger, I know you probably knew this isn't right, but did you know it was traumatic then, or is it when you got older and realized what trauma was that it was traumatic then? Yeah. So which one was it for you? When you were younger, did you know then, was it more than this isn't right? Did you know the word trauma and what that was like, or did you find it out later when you became in the profession?
I did know that the experiences I had as a child were not right as they were happening, and I didn't learn the language until much later in my life that validated those experiences. But yeah, as they were happening, I had a soul experience that this isn't right. There shouldn't be this much chaos in my life. There shouldn't be this much tension and authority figures that I'm supposed to trust. There's supposed to be more caretaking and attention here. So I had the spiritual awareness, but I didn't have the language to name it.
Got you. So kind of take us through your high school experience, college experience. How was that? How was it? Just how was it? Because I think it's important that times are different now.
Yeah.
How we came up. I graduated high school in 2009. So how we came up, high school. Now that I'm older, was pivotal. So I'm saying this because a lot of people are stuck in their high school phase, because I don't think we realize how big high school was in that transition of life. So can you kind of tap into what was your high school experience like, what was your college experience like, and then grad school experience like?
Yeah, high school was interesting for me. I went to high school in Raleigh. Like I said, I went to a huge high school. I graduated in 2010. I went to a huge high school in downtown Raleigh, and I was a dancer, so I danced in the contemporary company. I was on the hip-hop team. I was captain of the jazz team. So it looked like everything was fine, and I was taking the city bus to school. I had to apply to the high school that I went to.
Oh, wow.
And so there was no busing for my high school in that zone, and so I had to have my grandparents pay for my bus card so I could get on the bus at like 6 o'clock in the morning, go to school, and really fight my way through high school. Like I worked at a drugstore, I had to like pay for all of my dance costumes and things like that. And so everything was really, in high school I was adulting, like
Wow.
already. So, but high school, like my high school career was great. I had a lot of friends, very social, and managing that with my home life was one of the things that made me who I am.
Right. Dope. How about college?
College was fun too.
Were you like, first of all, I wasn't a good high school. I was a okay high school student.
Yeah.
I was a good second 2 years of college student, and I was a phenomenal grad school student.
That's funny.
Because I was never dumb. I just didn't have a lot of interest in school yet. But
Yeah.
when I got that letter freshman year, like, hey boy, if you don't get this together in college, we're gonna say chuck the deuces. So like, how was your schooling experience from an educational standpoint? Was school always easy for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, was it the social part that was difficult? Was it the education part that was difficult, or was kind of like free flowing? Like, school was very fluent for you. It was easy to get through.
So I was smart, and I think I would have done way better in high school if I had like a more positive, structured home life. But yeah, college, I graduated with I think like a 3.98 GPA. So there was because I had the financial aid, I had my basic needs met, I had food, I had housing. I was able to like focus in on academics. There was nothing that was holding me back as a barrier.
Gotcha.
But yeah, whereas in high school I was cultivating those leadership skills, and then shifting into college I was cultivating more of my academic, the scholarly self, which
Gotcha.
then like was able to inform like more about my career and push me into graduate school several years later. But yeah, in terms of your question regarding academics, I always loved reading and writing. And so
Sheesh.
yeah, socially, academically, once everything was in place, I was good to go.
So why a therapist? Why the wellness field? What I know you kind of talked on your childhood being, those things, but like what made you, and you tapped into it on the wellness clip, but like what was really like the thing that was like, yo, this is what I'm going to do and why?
Yeah. Well, actually, I had no idea. Like, when I was in college, I studied psychology and dance. I was just, like, there to be there. I didn't even think I was going to go to college. I worked at a drugstore, like I said, in high school, and thought I'm going to be a small-town girl. Until my best friend's mother, who was the attendance lady at my high school, encouraged me to apply to college.
Oh,
and
wow.
so that's the only way I ended up going to college. So I had no idea what I was going to study or what career I was going to have. I knew that I liked reading and writing, and psychology seemed to fit those needs for me. And then I knew I loved dancing, and so I double majored. And then I took 3 good years off after college, and I partied. I danced professionally.
That's what's up.
I traveled. I had, like I said, no real career trajectory. And then I started working in case management with clients that had severe psychosis and substance use disorders. And it felt really interesting to me to hear about their trauma and their childhood experiences, and then to see their coping mechanisms, how they would develop dissociation or, these delusions, however their coping got them to where they were, their substance use, whatever it was. And that made me interested in mental health, and so I studied clinical mental health counseling, and of course it tied everything together from my childhood experiences too.
Dope. So I did not know that. How was that? Traveling, dancing, how was that?
Dancing professionally in DC was tough because there's no money in it.
Oh wow!
And
I would never thought that.
The cost of living in DC is
crazy.
It's crazy. So it's like, okay, you can dance, like have fun. I was in rehearsals all day, all night, like making no money and barely eating.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was you doing to take care of your mental health at the time when it was like that, or was it just like you were young enjoying it, so it didn't really matter?
Exactly. Like, my aunt and uncle luckily allowed me to live with them, so I didn't have to focus so much on finances. So really, my mental health was the best it ever was. Like, I knew that my aunt and uncle were there. They were the most reliable parental figures I'd ever had, and they were like allowing me to like leave the nest and journey out and explore myself. And it was like, okay, great, I'm gonna use this and like take full advantage of this opportunity. And they loved me enough to like always be there as that like base.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope. That's dope. Salute to them. So you decided to be a therapist. You're doing So let me ask this though: how much did seeing their experiences, the casework, like when you're doing case management, how much did that change, if any, your opinion on the need of people to understand therapy, or at all? Like, did it? Cause you know how like I'm an educator, right? Like everybody need a good teacher, but when I got in the room, I was like, oh snap! Like we need them. Like I thought we needed them on level 5, like it was just a thing. But like, nah, this is like a very big foundation to a lot of kids, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, so doing that, how much, if any, did it change your thoughts on how bad people need it? Or like when you got into it, it was like, nah, I knew they needed it. I'm here now. This is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely.
Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It boosted my feeling of therapy needs to be more known. It needs to be more accessible for people. And it also really showed me that people don't understand or connect to their own big T or little t trauma histories. And a lot of people think, oh, that just happened to me. That didn't affect me at all. Like, I can just put that on the shelf and move on. When really we lose an opportunity to have full awareness of how something impacted us and to grow from it. So not only did it show me like, okay, therapy is a necessary field and it needs to be more accessible to people, like I said, but it also showed me like we need to talk more about trauma. We need to validate people's experiences more and let them know that they are not alone and that the secrets don't have to just stay tucked away on the shelf. Like we can bring them out and discuss them and process them in a way that's healthy.
So this is a complete sidebar. You can say, no, I'm not answering this, but I have a question. So people that experience traumatic stuff, that kind of like got through it, but it was definitely traumatic, but they don't ever talk about it. They just get through life and they seem quote unquote okay. Is that still a trauma response? Or does it mean that wasn't traumatic to them? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a broad question. On an individual level, it would take some more analysis, but there is a possibility that, and there are lots of people who are resilient to things that have happened and they're able to move forward and lead healthy lives. We all have differing levels of resilience and we also have differing levels of buffers that assist us with getting through big T, little t traumas. And so when we're, growing up in that adverse community environment, and let's say our community is like just run with drugs and litter, unhealthy food options, things like that, if we have family that is able to serve as a buffer there between us and our adverse community, then it helps us build resilience. It helps us know that like we're gonna actually be supported through that. And so, yeah, we all have different levels of trauma. There is, though, the trauma response of repression and suppression, just like forgetting it, letting it sit in your subconscious and impact you in subtle ways that you might not identify, or intentionally just putting it on the shelf so that you compartmentalize and you move forward.
Yeah. So, I was about to say dope, but it's crazy. And the reason why, let me just dig a little deeper for myself. The reason why I ask is because, like, I lost my mother. It'll be 10 years ago this July. And it's like, even though I got through it, been through it, I don't know what deems something traumatic. This is my personal opinion. Like, I get that it was traumatic, but like, I guess to the point that you're making, is like, I guess it's how good you were taught to emotionally handle things, where you can like experience and get through them. So I've always been interested in different professionals' opinion of just like that. I don't want to say obstacle course, but like that obstacle course of emotion when something big happens. Because I still have moments to this day. You feel me? Like you still go through some of the things you saw. You may cry here, you may smile here, but it's like I don't don't want to sound bad, but I don't know about deeming as trauma. I feel like it affected me. Don't get me wrong, but like I've always seen trauma as like something somebody relives all the time. So I'm like, I don't know if I relive it, but it bothers me, you know, when I get a memory or something like that. So that's why I asked that question. But moving on.
Well, Kina, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, it's your world.
next
It is your world. Come on.
But I lost my mother in 2010. It was my freshman year of college, and
Sorry to hear that. My condolences.
we didn't.
Yes.
Thank you. We didn't have the best relationship though, so it wasn't as impactful as you and your mother. You were very close, and so, but there are those grief memories that come up. I mean, that's quite common when we've experienced loss, and when you're talking about like trauma and not being sure kind of like how to categorize that for yourself, you're able to identify like, okay, maybe I had some social supports in place, like that served as a buffer for me in my recovery, but those grief experiences are common, that we would have those like memories or thoughts or feelings of missing a loved one, and that's quite common and healthy with loss.
Oh wow. So is grief, I know there's 7 steps, am I right? 7 steps?
Ooh, don't even quote me on there are several theories of like the stages of grief.
But is it cyclical? Does it ever stop, or is it like you get through, once you get through step, let's say last step is done?
No, there's no end point, and
I did not know that.
yeah, there's no end point, and also there's no beginning point. Like sometimes people are surprised that like a loved one hasn't reacted properly, like, oh, they're not crying, they're not really responding to this grief. Like there's no real starting point to grief. It kind of shows up how it shows up individually. It's an individualized experience.
And to your point, and I'll ask the question I didn't forget, but it made me think about this. Like I was almost 28 when I realized you didn't have death is not the only thing you can grieve over. Like losing friendships.
Yes.
I didn't even know, like, say if you broke an arm and you could never use it the same way, you'll grieve over being able to use it. But it was like mind-boggling, like transitioning, because I think about it now, and within 18 months, I lost my mother, graduated college, moved to Northern Virginia, started my career, and got married. But being 22, you just like, oh, we out here getting it.
Yeah.
And then like now that I'm older, and the emotional avalanche that came with all those things so close together, I realize now like that probably wasn't the best 5 transitions to put together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like I was grieving, moving away from my friends. Like I was back home like every weekend, and I'm just like, bro. And this is what hit me. Somebody said like, do you even live in VA? Because you down here more than every weekend I see you. I'm like, damn, do I? You know what I mean? So disconnected from them was a grieving thing.
Sure.
But made me think of something else. How normalized do you think society wants getting over things to be? Like, you know how your job gives you 2 weeks and you gotta, or 3 days of bereavement time, you gotta be back. Or like, you get in a car accident, you can't be trauma. It's like, hey, get back to it. We're gonna cut you this check so you can go buy the next car. Like, in your opinion, do you think society tries to push normalizing getting over things quick? And completely your opinion. This take it wherever you want.
I feel like there is economic benefit in that. Like there's an economic benefit to your job getting you back into work quickly. I don't think mentally like we've really put in kind of the rule book about how much or how quickly we heal from things. And there is no rule book. And this whole thing about normalizing is odd because we have so many experiences are really nuanced and individualized, and our social media world is telling us to normalize so many different things when it's just okay to simply be you. Like, have your own experience, advocate for yourself at work if you need more time off, you know, whatever it is, but normalizing a thing that is very nuanced is impossible.
That's crazy. I see it so much that, so are you saying like, this is going to be a weird question, Destinee, forgive me. So is that like saying like there's no such thing as like our normal is based upon our life
Yeah.
versus there's no like generalized normal, if that makes sense? Like there's no common normal for me, you, him. Is that kind of the vibe that you're saying when you say that?
Exactly. I mean, I think to a certain extent, like there are some things that just need to be in place. Like
Yeah,
we,
for sure.
we can have like a baseline for some things.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, at a certain point, you're going to have to recognize that, okay, this experience is normal for me. My anxiety, my level of grief, my depression, whatever it is normal for me. I cannot have the expectation that the rest of society relates to me on this topic. There is no normalizing my individualized experience.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. So, what?
That's crazy. It's like the spectrum of the individual is like never ending.
Yeah.
So it's really, you can't normalize anything, to be honest.
Right.
Bro, and it makes you think, how much of a hold does social media really have on us? Because it's almost like when you hear that and you read, if you go down your timeline, there's nowhere near the same in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always saying normalize. Basically, somebody decided something that was popular and say normalize this. And we're like, oh, dang, we should. You know what I'm saying? Like,
social media is like a quick way to adjust everybody to a social construct, whether it be correct or incorrect. It's just a platform to bring everybody together towards ideas, and sometimes those ideas aren't very conducive to what's healthy.
Factual.
And it's a beautiful thing to be validated, right? If something
Yeah,
feels
facts.
like, oh wow, I thought I was the only person that was going through that, and there are other people who experience that and relate to that, that's a beautiful thing. Validation feels so good and affirming.
It does.
And also, when you don't get that validation, especially on social media, it can send people into a frantic tizzy.
Yeah.
Like, wait, someone didn't accept this about me, and now I'm feeling unlike myself, lacking confidence, depressed, wanting to isolate, like whatever the consequences are. And we need to really encourage more self-esteem in our own nuances, our own way of being.
Yeah, that social media baggage have us up. That got to be like I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna jump out.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna jump out. 3.5 things about social media to this point. Social media had it. All you doing is comparing all day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And to your point, like to both of you all's point, I think it becomes a problem when you don't control who you follow. Because if you're in 10 different communities, that norm for that community may be normal. Like if I watch athletes all the time and it's straight working out discipline, and then I'm a foodie, I'm in the foodie world, then I'm very spiritual, so I'm in it's too many, like, you know what I'm saying, cross paths of what you're saying and what you're digesting. That's why I had to learn, like, bro, I'm not telling anybody this, and I'm not a professional at all, but like, I don't think anybody should start their day with social media. I don't care what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, there's no way you can be on something and say it doesn't influence you. I don't believe that. I don't believe if I check your time on your social media, not really, but like, say if yours says 3 hours and yours says 6, your influence may be bigger and hers may be smaller, but it still influenced on what you saw that day. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely agree.
You know what I mean? Even being married, like I'll say it's like I'm not like certain famous people. I unfollow, bro. Like that's not. I don't think, because you know what social media make you do mentally, judge the people around you based off what you're seeing.
Exactly.
Whether that's your wife, friend, dog, whatever it is, it makes you judge that. And I'm like, damn, like I don't even want to live like that. But I'm looking at this thinking like this is normal.
Yeah.
Because everybody on social media,
And
the whole
your generation like in it too.
the whole person's identity is kind of skewed, and we gravitate towards concepts and ideas of a person. Like if we continuously see a person that's like, for example, if I see a famous athlete or somebody up and coming in an athlete atmosphere, and I'm continuously watching them, I'm just seeing the concept of them. Oh, they're achieving higher, they're getting higher and higher. Instead of seeing like, okay, like you were saying, they're having their own individual experience. They're still going through hardships. They're still going through traumas. They're still, learning their identity. But we just see the highlights. So of course we're all gonna, our self-esteem is gonna be affected by that.
So in this realm, and then I still remember my question, but in this realm, how do you, knowing these things and knowing all the knowledge you gained on the wellness side, how do you manage social media yourself? Like, not in a literal sense, but like, how do you use it if you're doing, like, but leave it at that? You know what I mean? Leaving it at the front door. How do you do that if you do that?
Yeah, I barely post on social media just because I feel these days a lot of empathy for the experiences that other people are having, specifically regarding COVID-19 and loss, and there's like an economic transition right now, so there are a lot of people experiencing financial hardship, and because of my upbringing, I feel like, well, I don't want to flaunt my life right now. I'm feeling like I don't want to put it in people's face that like me and my like Shih Tzu dog are riding in my convertible like to the park, you know, like
Got you. Yeah.
I'm having an experience of like navigating my relationship to social media based on what I don't want people to see. Where
That's very compassionate.
It is, bro. That's dope.
And also I love seeing what other people are doing. And so that's the difficult balance for me sometimes, is like, you know, why don't I want to share those things when other when I love being a part of other people's curated experiences. But I don't really post on social media except if I'm promoting one of my workout classes, and I'll post a playlist, post a quote, post a little snippet of my puppy, and then keep it rocking until the next week.
That's what's up. So that actually ties directly into my next question.
Before we move on to one more question about social media.
Can you just ask it instead of doing all that?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Because now I'm gonna have to edit the audio.
Oh, sorry. Question. So with social
These
media,
interns, bro. Like what?
it's me behind the camera.
This dude really starts saying question. Do you mind if I ask another question? Like, you didn't just say it. Like, go ahead, bro.
Okay. You almost made me lose the question. Okay, so here we go with social media. So,
Oh, he can hear me.
yeah, I definitely can. So with social media, right?
Is social media big
more,
for you?
It's more of a statement more than a question. It's not big for me. It was big for me at a time.
I want you to get your question. I'm gonna ask after. Ask your question.
Okay, so I don't. It's more of a statement. I don't think social media is inherently terrible. I think it can be very fantastic, but it's a very complex issue that we're still learning. So I feel like, you know how you were talking about repressing emotions and everybody's level of what was it? What were we talking about when we were talking about
Resilience, grief.
Grief.
Mm-hmm.
Grief. I feel like everyone's level with social media is similar to that. Like, you know, the way that they compare themselves, the way that they navigate through it. Okay, now I can be on social media freely. I feel like those tie in together in some way.
So my separating thing was, and I've seen social media on two ends. I've seen it like where young people like literally are like, if it didn't happen on social media, it's not real. Like, it's almost like their reality.
That's unfortunate.
You know what I'm saying? And then I've seen on my end, like, I think when you say it's fantastic, I feel like when you use it as a tool, to remember birthdays, to communicate with people that you may not see all the time, and people, and I'm like this. When we're locked in, family members, friends, and I see kids and my cousins, to me it just makes me know that you're okay.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a tool for me, a communication tool when it comes to business. We create the content, we post it, because there's a specific reason why I'm trying to get this out here. You know what I'm saying? I think when you use it, this is the best way I can put it. At some point in time, we don't escape reality we escape reality by technology instead of the other way around. Like, we're in technology all the time and have to escape to be in reality. Versus like being in reality all the time. Like when I was young, you play games. That was your escape. You were in reality, like, bro, I'm I'm about to play this game, a fighting game, and let this steam off.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're to the point we gotta escape technology just to be in reality.
Yeah.
So that's when it's not a tool anymore. When like you have to decompress, and like your decompress is straight like a dump of everybody else's world for two. You know what I'm saying?
It's like a drug.
It's worse than drugs, bro. Because I think like, see, we might get in a whole other bag, bro. You see what I'm saying? They trying to take me down a whole other bag. But the reason why I think it's worse is because when you're a drug addict, right? I'm not a professional. When you're a drug addict, right? I'm not. When you're a drug addict, though, like, it's almost like you kind of know. I'm just trying to, for lack of a better term, the story. Like, say if it's a drug you're dealing with, say you're a functional alcoholic, right?
High function.
It's like, it's kind of like you're doing it and it's like, you know you're doing it, I guess, like, gotta go buy it type thing. I hope this makes sense. The scariest thing about social media to me is so embedded in our day that we don't even realize how embedded it is.
Yeah, we don't acknowledge how powerful that it can.
Like when you got it, if like every time your phone go in and you gotta check 3 different apps just to see if you missed something, that's too embedded to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it can't be like a drug, and I'm not comparing social media to addiction. Please don't. No, this is not that platform. We're not doing that. But oh
Yeah, that just.
I mean, that there is such a thing as an addiction to social media. I mean, like, even though it's normalized, just because everyone does it doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, you know, you have to think about your level of involvement in something. If it's unhealthy, if it's something that you can't manage, if it's out of your control, you know, think about the criteria for addiction. And that's something that a lot of people have difficulty coming.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
Intern.
Hey, Des, I'm sorry. I'm not editing that out either, bro.
Please,
No, go ahead. I'm not. Do you see what I'm saying? Go ahead, Des. I'm sorry.
That's something a lot of people have difficulty coming to terms with. I mean, in terms of substance use, you remember being a kid back in the day and being like, well, all my friends do it. Like, it's cool because, like, all my friends do it, and your parents would be like, well, if they jumped off the bridge, would you go after them? Like, just because it's normalized and all your friends do it, don't make it right. Like, you have to think about your own level of comfort and connection to something. If it's unhealthy, then you might need to consider whether you need to reroute your behavior.
Got you. I got you. Did you need to take that call or?
That is funny.
Like, you see what? Like, do you not see firsthand? But let me say this: while I'm giving him a hard time, he is that guy behind the camera. He just, you know what I'm saying? But he is that guy.
Don't cut that out.
He is that guy.
Don't cut that out.
Yeah, no, I'm not, because I give it both ways. You feel me? I'm not gonna just get you and not give you your props. But to were you done with the social media thing, or did you have another question?
It's more neuroscience.
Okay, yeah, we're not going that deep. All right, so see, I got you, appreciate you. So the next thing I want to do, which ties into what you were saying, like with dancing and things like that, and fitness, how much of that is a balance for you still? Like dancing, being physical, working out, how much of a balance is that for you? And where do you believe that helps people who think, like, I'm not into working out? How much does movement help? Is it connected to the mental piece for you and then for others?
Yeah, movement is medicine for me. There has never been a time in my life where I didn't use movement to heal from something or to understand something or to just stop using my, like, verbal language and use, like, my spiritual language. Like, movement definitely takes me out of my mind and gets me into a body space that's, like, more animalistic. It, like, gets me away from the societal expectations. So yeah, I use movement every day in many ways. And
you think about the clip.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like, there's no, I think sometimes when people have not been introduced to movement in a way that feels nourishing, or when they have been their bodies have been taken advantage of and they are not in control of it or have not been in control of it, then they don't get the relationship with movement that can serve as medicine. And that's why I love yoga. I remember taking my first yoga class when I was in college, and I was studying dance, and I was supposed to be in a ballet class, and we had a substitute that day, and we did yoga, and I was like, what is this, like, hippie mess? I was totally not into it. Like, I wanted to be in my ballet shoes, in my leotard, like, you know,
Is that one? Keep going,
doing the, doing my, like, you know, doing my ballet thing. And, like, just the idea of going into, like, a downward dog and, like, putting my hips up in the air was absurd to me. And I felt, leaving that class, I felt, like, so disrespected. Like, how in the world could you come into my ballet class and, like, do that? And then I kept thinking about it. And, like, I'm like, oh, I kind of want to, like, experience that sensation again. There was something about that sensation that was so new and nourishing in a way that I need to explore. And so, you know, from then on, I've been practicing yoga in different ways and exploring different types of yoga. And it's an opportunity for me to journal without writing and without, like, being in language. Sometimes there are experiences that there are no words for, that I just need to get out in my body. It's yoga, dance, you know, in any kind of nourishing movement.
And it's crazy you say that, because, you know, somebody else, you know, Britt, that's on in the project too, he was saying, like, literally certain movements release emotion. Like, in yoga, I was like, yo. So to hear you say, like, journaling without writing or anything, it's crazy to, like, to hear, like, we did at my job, my principal brought in a yoga instructor. And, like, I'm not going to lie, lunchtime, we doing yoga, but, yo, that was probably the best evening I had, because it was just so, like, it's so something. And the only reason you feel awkward is because you haven't done it long enough to, like, it to be normal. But, like, yo, yoga is a big, like, thing, like a great thing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not the most flexible, but that movement is really, 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 really good for anybody, I would think. So kind of, like, transitioning to, like, where you are now, as far as, because you kind of alluded to this before the mic, but I want to kind of tap into that, where you were saying, like, we were talking about burnout. You were saying how, like, you do, your movement helps you, you know, basically daily do things that you feel better about. You're in the wellness field, and a lot of times it's hard to for humans, period, just to, like, if you're talking to people all day, not taking on them problems, like, burnout is a big thing right now. Self-care is a big thing right now. How do you apply that to doing all the things you do? Because you're kind of honestly available to a lot of people all the time. So, like, how does that look for you?
Well, there is a strong sense of values and, like, foundation that I have about myself that allows me to be open for people enough and to reel it back in when I've been sucked of all my energy.
Gotcha.
Whereas I think a lot of people who have burnout issues really have difficulty creating and maintaining boundaries. And so I know for myself, I need some away time, whether it's, you know, a week in Africa, or whether it's just 2 days snuggling my puppy. And so I'm going to build that into my schedule because it serves as a refresh for me. My refreshes don't always come on the days that I need them. There are some days where I'm like, this is a lot today. Today would be a great refresh day. But I do build in an opportunity for me to have that kind of downtime so that I can be available to people when I need to be and when I want to be. I know that, you know, there's the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, and I can't even be there for me if I am exhausted from work and fitness, and, you know, all day I'm literally in sessions or I'm at a studio teaching. There's, like, this consumption of my energy, And if at the end of the day I don't even feel like showing up for myself, then I know that that's not a good. I've never gotten to that point, but I've heard where that's happened to people where they're like, I've neglected myself completely, and I don't want myself to get to that point. I don't allow myself to get to that point, and so I build in that intentional time. It's just like people carving out time to pray. You need that time to just navigate your internal experience. You want to give gratitude for things that you're thankful for in your life and your day and the people, and also request things from your higher power that you've been wanting, and that's what people should do for themselves as well.
So, like half of these really aren't even thought of, but you say things that make me think about it. Boundaries. I heard you talk about like people that experience burnout is like really big with not being able to set good boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. So like, can you tap into two-part question? How do you set them so well? Because you said you don't really get to that point where you burn out. Mm-hmm. And what, if any, are some of the hardest things that you've experienced with, like, that you see why people can't create boundaries, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me when I notice that people have difficulty setting boundaries is that they don't have a strong sense of their value system. When you don't know what your values are, when you don't have like a value statement for your life, then you're just doing things. You're just action oriented with no purpose, no goal, no intention. When people are strong in their values, they know what they stand for, they know what's important to them, then they're going to be able to set boundaries. No, this isn't important to me. This isn't on my priority list. It's not significant, so I'm going to have to say no to that opportunity. Or, yes, my family is really important to me. This relationship is significant, and so this is something that I'm going to allow into my life. When people are not sure, or they're like so interested in people pleasing that they've neglected themselves, then there's typically that issue with either too soft, too flexible boundaries, or too rigid.
What made you okay with being able to set boundaries like, no, I'm good?
I think because of that upbringing where I was so neglected and just like, had an absent mother. My father lived in a different city. I like really was a parentified child. I learned early on to set boundaries because I had two little brothers that I was caretaking for. Wow. And a mother who I was caretaking for who was a substance user. There was a lot of opportunity for me to learn early on the yes and no's of things. Like, it's survival. And then as I got older, being more in tune with not letting people or things take advantage of time that wasn't important to me. Like, even when you mentioned earlier.
Bro, I'm not crying, bro. It's something in my eye.
That's what they all say.
No, it's really something in my eye. Go ahead, Destiny. I feel like you're watering something going to drop, so I'm like, no, bro, that ain't. No, I'm serious though. Something really. Hey, look at him back there, tear.
I ain't saying anything.
But when you earlier when you said before we mic'd up, you were saying like you're so straightforward via text message. It's because if you leave too much opportunity for people to misunderstand you, they don't know. You wouldn't have known that I was in the middle of my workday if I didn't tell you I'm in the middle of my workday. Like if you don't clarify for people what your fence is, it's just like having a fenced-in yard. If you don't clarify, like, okay, this is what's happening in my fence and the gate's not open right now, then they don't have an opportunity to give you the respect that you want and need. Now, if you are setting boundaries and people are still disrespecting them, then that's an opportunity for you to shut it down.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I set up this fence for you. I said my gate was closed, and now you've just jumped my fence, and now I'm going to have to make new rules for this relationship. A lot of people don't have really the confidence sometimes or the language to be able to boundary set, but really, and that's okay, that can always be worked on, but really it's the foundational values that people lack when they're not boundary setting. What's important to me? And what are my missions, my goals, intentions for life?
Yeah, and to like even to the text message thing, like, you know what I had to learn? If it's not extremely short or extremely long, just don't read tone. If you read the words for what they are, so disclaimer, dealing with adults, and I mean adults as in like maturity. Like there's some 35-year-old, 18-year-olds out here, if you understand what I'm saying. But like if you're dealing like me, I know there was no malicious or no disrespect. No, you was telling me straight like, but see, like I've text people that like read exclamation points. That makes me so mad. Like literally take it like you yelling. I get in the grand scheme of something like, no, I think if we're texting and my autocorrect puts that there instead of a period, if you just read the words. Because it was like a simple 3-4 sentences. Like I don't think it's usually extremely long when somebody trying to get a nasty message through, or extremely short, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like I don't read tone that way, because if you did, it goes back to like us. I'm sorry, go back in this bag. It goes back to us reading everybody else's stuff through like their captions all day long. So you try to read their tone based off the picture you're seeing. So when you get a regular text, you think you got to read a tone, and you don't. It's literally again
what it is.
With adults. There's some petty people out here. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And with the boundary thing, with me, I had to learn. You just called me out for real. Didn't even know like the value thing, like what we were talking about before. And I was like, bro, my family. Like I just really realized like I can't take my eye off of it. If it don't, it's crazy you said that, because you actually like answered the question for me when I didn't even know like it was that. Because I could tell somebody he's like, oh nah, bro, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I
Like,
can definitely identify with that as well.
you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not, and I've learned to say I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Like that don't serve me, bro. Like
Exactly.
I'm not interested in doing that, because I think a lot of times peer pressure is not like, hey, let's go do this. Hey, so I can say now confidently I'm not interested in that. So
It's not significant to me. It was something you said. This is not significant to what I want. That's strong.
it is, bro. But it goes back to the value thing. It goes back to the and I don't know if we were taught properly what we value. Like everybody taught manners. That's like that general normalization, right?
Politeness.
You know what I'm saying? But like, do we value, like my wife, she's an introvert. She values alone time. I'm not interrupting nobody, including myself. If when she needs it, I'm not messing with that, because it's of true value. And to your point, I think boundaries would change the world. I can't remember this lady's name. God forgive me. She read this. I read this book called Set Boundaries and Find Peace. She's a therapist. Oh my gosh, life changing. Because it was talking about boundaries at work, like people busting in your office when you're eating lunch. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like people, like certain things, like
Just jumping the fence.
bro, like you get out your car, people talking to you in the parking lot. Like I didn't realize how many boundaries get crossed in a day until I read that book. I'm like,
And all those take a piece of your energy, a piece. And that's probably why a lot of people experience burnout. That's a contributing factor.
yeah, it is.
It.
But so, along with those things, and you managing that, and you doing some really great things, not necessarily from your childhood, but like, what are some of the challenges you experienced? Just being able to perform, being able to have success at this level. I believe success is individualized, but like, what are some challenges you faced being a therapist in the wellness field? You know what I mean? Or dancing, I guess. Is it more personal now? You still do it somewhat professionally, or do you just do it for yourself now?
Yeah, I don't dance professionally now, just teaching fitness.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges in those arenas, teaching fitness and being a therapist, for you personally? If any, it may not be any.
Yeah, I think the challenges that I experience at this point in my life are really insignificant to even mention. Like,
life is good.
Yeah.
That's good that life is good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like it's nothing about my job. Like, I love my career. I'm launching a business that's still very fresh, and I have some challenges in terms of being an entrepreneur. You do it so well and make it look so easy, but it's quite a difficult thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But in terms of my career as a psychotherapist and a fitness instructor, now my challenges are essentially depleted. Like, I have to write notes, I have to show up for a class, I have to make a playlist. Like, things are good. I think like earlier on in my career, when I was learning communication and like still holding on to a lot of those Southern values, like don't speak unless you're spoken to, or like be obedient to authority, and you know, all of those things I had to shed.
You had to tap into that.
I know that was hard.
Like, what was that like? I'm so sorry to cut you off. Please, I apologize. What was that like, and when did you realize that those values don't serve you in the career, in your trajectory of life?
Yeah, I learned it. Luckily, it looks like there's another question.
Nah, I just had a question after you.
Okay,
but I didn't want to interrupt.
I think I learned it early on. Like I moved from college the day after I graduated into Maryland, D.C. area.
That's crazy. I did not know that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I did not know that.
And the day after too?
Yes,
yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Literally. Maybe like 3 or 4 days, but like it was literally the same week.
Yeah, exactly. And I just realized there was a lot more like self-advocacy here than in North Carolina. Like in North Carolina, you're seen, not heard, especially as like an attractive young woman. You're like supposed to find a husband that does all like the speaking and the leading, and very traditional values. And I started to develop like my own thinking about like, well, actually all these other people around me aren't living that kind of a life. Like, you know, DC is like so progressive, and you know. So yeah, luckily I was able to shed those values early on. That like, it was challenging at first though. It's hard to not, it's hard to speak up to authority when you're so used to like, okay, well this is, you know, be obedient to authority. This person's higher up in the company than me. They must be right. I shouldn't give any pushback.
Right.
And then it's like, well, is that serving me though? Like, is that getting me to the level I want to be at? Is it serving my clients? Is it like dangerous for my client? You know, whatever the case is, there was definitely this neutral zone, which William Bridges writes about transition. And he has a beautiful theory about transition, and he talks about like this discomfort that people experience when they're in the re-identification process and like coming into a new part of their identity and shedding their old identity, where you have to start to define yourself, your new identity, based on what you want. And so that transition period for me was like, okay, now how do I learn how to give professional feedback, rather than being kind of like passive aggressive or being just rebellious for no reason. Luckily it happened early enough in my career, but it was uncomfortable to have those challenges and to like shed those Southern values that were so ingrained.
For sure. Okay, I'm sorry.
My question was, how did that, if you remember, how did that emotionally feel for you?
It felt like I was being disobedient to a parent. Like, because when you think about like all of the messages that maybe not you, like, but we as Southern people have gotten from our parents of like, you know, just basic values that you have listened to and heard and followed your entire life, and then suddenly I'm talking back to someone who is an authority figure.
Bro, that's real, yo.
It's like, I'm being disobedient right now. I could be punished for this. There could be a consequence for this.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Exactly.
Who knows?
And that navigating that fear, especially as a young woman, is like, well, how do I navigate? How do I navigate this fear? How am I going to get my point across? How am I going to stand up for myself and then also stand up for what I believe in? And developing language to be able to do that in a way that's constructive rather than destructive for myself or the other person, not letting it come out as an attack, but also not letting it come out in a way that lacks confidence. Like, I want to make sure that what I'm saying is grounded in confidence and truth and safety for all parties involved, and compassion for myself and the other person.
And I'm gonna tell you, like, this is so crazy that she said this. That she like reading my whole life a little bit low key. Bro, I had to shed mine because my wife is not one of them. Like, I was never. So I think my thing is I grew up in a household. Do you need us to chill for a second?
Nah, that one's still going, so you guys can go ahead.
Okay, all right. So like I came up. This is what's crazy. My mom never really had to like, you the man of your house, because the head of my household was a woman. So I never really viewed women as like inferior. It was just like, like, oh, when I say that this is the way it go. Like I hate the head of the household talk thing because I don't believe in that. Like I think it sounds good for paper and for social media, but at the end of the day, these decisions are made together.
Yeah.
Like it may be certain things she's the head on because I don't. That's her realm. Certain things I'm the head on. Like
strength and weakness.
you know what I'm saying? But and we're asing out like protection or anything like that. Like that's just to me. I feel like that's a natural thing. To you know what I'm saying? But like I had to go through like that, bro. Like she first of all, she's opinionated. Brittany's natural voice is loud. And again, she's opinionated. It don't bother me.
Opinionated twice.
But because you want to know why? I am. And what I realized was like, I don't want nobody that's not going to say how they feel.
Yeah.
I don't want nobody that's not going to stand up for themselves because, you know what I'm saying? And now that we got kids, like, you know, God forbid, I'm not here one day. I know they're good. She going to teach them without seeing it from me. So from the other end, like I got married at 23 too. So it was like, people really started like, oh, like, you know, you the man, I'm like, hey, it took me a long time. I'm like, bro,
shut up.
Our house, no, I didn't say that. Like, our house, your house. What works here may not work there. And it's crazy because it's Southern values, bro. Like, up here, Brittany fits in perfectly because women are doing their thing. They have their careers, the master's degree. Like, and it's not
So down there, it's really like.
It's not like they teach you it, but you can feel it when you're in places. It's just the way it. Bro, my grandmother and my grandfather, he military, worked the whole time. She would stay at home. So they didn't teach me that, but that's what I saw. You know what I'm saying? But it was just like my grandmother did not work. And I spent a lot of summers there type. You know what I mean? But
I have a follow-up question. Yeah. So can you stop laughing at me?
Like the whole pep talk before don't even matter.
So the question was, hold on, dang, I just lost it. When it comes back, then
okay. I got you. So with all those things, kind of with that, you got it?
Yeah,
okay.
I got it. So when you guys were talking about finally getting to the phase of speaking up for your boundaries, did you guys lose a lot of friends? And if so, were they intimate friendships? And how did that feel? Are you guys still grieving over that? Or how did that?
That for her, me. That's for her.
It could be for both of you guys.
Right now, I can't think of a friendship of value that I lost when I was creating new boundaries and re-identifying myself. I mean, I feel like I gained so much more. Maybe that's why I didn't recognize the loss, because I gained so much more that it didn't feel like a loss.
I'm gonna just say yes. I'm not even gonna go deep. I'm gonna just say yes because I don't think they were real friendships. As close as we were, as real as you think things are, people that's really with you, you don't lose. I just don't think. I think they respect the trends. I think if like the people that rocks with her heavy, the people that rocks with you heavy, when you start to elevate, like I don't think they know, and it's kind of like they fit in those areas. Like, you know, it's kind of like this. Every time I go back to North Carolina, no matter all the great things, I'm super blessed. The things that happen to me, I'm just Keenan again. It's not if I ever gotta walk and not just be Keenan, it's like those aren't my peoples for real. Like, you know what I'm saying? If I gotta, hey, bro, nah.
Fake the funk.
It ain't that you fake I don't even want to say fake the funk. It's like the second somebody treats me like they don't know me, I know they were never really my peoples. You get what I'm saying? So like, did I lose people? Yes. When she says like I gained so much, like, and the people that's rocking with me basically still here. You know what I'm saying? So to answer that question, I'm gonna say yes, because I think you just learn your values, and when people don't align with that, and you really intact with what you value, and what you value doesn't have to always be career, money, business, or stuff like that. It could just be Like
Exercise.
church.
Just for example. Yeah.
Like this is during brunch hour. Like some people like, nah, bro, I just enjoy this more now. I enjoy movies by myself on Fridays now instead of being at a happy hour. That's just who I am now.
Strong.
Not every Friday, but
Yeah.
most Fridays.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's legitimately like who I've grown to be. I like coming home. I like my son. I like my wife. They don't bother me. I don't hate being home. So like, I'm not gonna do anything to mess that up. I don't know if I answered your question.
It did.
Okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to that point about like losing people, even when like values and understanding of shedding old values changed. I've never had a value on my own family. I mean, I've never wanted to be a mother. I've never wanted to like birth children, get married. Like it's never been my thing. But family and quality relationships are huge to me. So when my friends started to have children, I had to learn how to navigate, okay, I don't really want to be associated with the children. That's not my strong interest. But I love this person. This is one of my quality friends. This relationship still is important to me. So I'm going to have to open myself up to this relationship with this little person. So even though it was a transition in terms of shedding that Southern value of like family for myself, I was still able to kind of merge my old ideas with my new ideas so that I can maintain some of the quality relationships that still held on to those old values.
That's were you always like that? Like very considerate of like, I guess other people's just being, cause it's almost like I'm considerate too, right? But like I want to go back to what you said earlier really quickly, and we can get off of it. But like the social media thing, I've never heard somebody say that. We've been in the pandemic, well, this situation for almost 2 years now, over 2 years now. I've never heard somebody say like, nah, I just think that it's been so hard for other people. Like I want to be considerate of that. I'm okay. Like, so have you always been aware of people's energy is a big word right now, but like their situations when it comes to how you fit into their life? Have you always been like that, or what you've learned has made you like that?
I've always been like that because I've been on the other side too. I've been the one that had nothing, that like had no one, that looked at other people and thought like, wow, they must be really happy, or you know, they have so many people, or they have so many things, they have so much food, like whatever it was when I was growing up and without. So because I've been on that side, I'm very aware of how easy it is to misunderstand when you don't have and you think people do. It's easy to compare in a negative way that brings more shame. And that's like, I don't want people to misunderstand and think that, oh, she has all these things and I should feel shame about what I don't have, or she has all this joy and I should feel shame that I don't have that. Because that's not the full picture, and I'd much rather show nothing than to have to like feel guilt or over explain or seem like I lack compassion.
Got you. So before we close out, I have to ask this last question. Do you feel, not to yourself personally, do you think in your experiences, I'm just going to ask the question, why do you think adult friendships are so hard to navigate? And you may not feel like they are. And it may be me projecting, but I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't have the experience of, personally, of adult friendships being hard to navigate, but I can imagine that they're difficult because transition, like we've been talking about, when part of the friendship or partnership is stagnant and another part is growing or moving, those things don't always come into alignment. And when there's a lot of like self-focus and there's not a lot of us focus, or even an ability to go away from one another and come back with the ball gets dropped. I mean, relationships take maintenance. And so even if I step away from my friendships for a while, when we come back together, there's the understanding that we're going to spend intentional energy on cultivating and renewing that relationship. And a lot of people don't, a lot of adults, like you spoke earlier about like adults in maturity. Like a lot of adults don't have intentionality. They're just acting, like I said, with no value system, no foundation. So if the relationship is not important to them, even if they go away from it, they can't come back in a way that's healthy and loving and actually reconnects.
Got you. Dope. So so I heard you talk earlier about, launching a business, where you at. Give us as much as you can about some of the things that you see yourself doing in the wellness field, what you would like to accomplish, and that business while it's launching, what it's about, if you can. I know.
Yeah. My business, Study Stoop, is a business that assists future counselors with preparing for their counseling exams, CPCE and NCE, and it's a very niche business. And in addition, I'll continue psychotherapy. I hope to publish some books soon in the future, maybe in the next year, couple years.
That's what's up.
I'll be reading them.
That's what's up.
And yeah, I'll continue to teach fitness and practice fitness, yoga. That's it. Right now, I'm just trying to be as joyous and peaceful as possible.
That's what's up. Millennials versus the world. K-Dot, we got Destinee, and the camera guy, Ty.
The camera guy, Ty.
All right,
Millennials, yeah.